Today we are going to talk about taking risk. When we are in these seasons of change and the Lord is prompting us to step out of our boat, so to speak, He is calling us to take a risk. Now, if you haven't seen the first two videos, I encourage you to go back and watch those because this topic is building on top of each other. And so this is the third part of a 4-part mini-series. And it's all about transitioning. It's about when change comes into our lives and how to recognize it, how to know if it's from the Lord, and how to transition gracefully. Well, we're in the story of Jesus walking on water, and we've been reading it by parts each time. But if you haven't read it in its entirety, I encourage you to do that in your own devotion time. You can find it in Matthew 14, verses 22 through 32. And I just pray that the Lord just speaks to you because it's such a powerful message in itself, but I feel like there's just so much prophetic language, and the Lord's just been really speaking to me about how this relates to our lives when the winds of change come into them. Well, we're in verse 28, and we're going to read a few verses here. And so we know that Jesus started walking on water. He looked like a ghost to them. And Jesus said, "Hey, no, it's me." And here we are on verse 28. "Lord, if it's you," Peter replied, "tell me to come to you on the water." "Come," he said. Then Peter got down out of the boat, walked on the water, and came towards Jesus. But when he saw the wind, he was afraid, and beginning to sink, he cried out, "Lord, save me." There's a lot in here, and it's so exciting how the Lord can speak a message one time, but He can continually breathe on it, and it brings to life so many things that He wants to speak to us. Well, I just want to start off first as saying, Peter asked for a confirmation. And I think this is so key in our lives that especially during times of transition, it is wise to ask for confirmations from the Lord, because for us, when transition comes, it's not just me and my husband. It's not just me. But I have 3 children, right? And so when we transition, we're not just, affecting ourselves. No, we're affecting our immediate family and those around us. And so we need to really ask confirmations from the Lord. And Peter says, "If it is you, Lord, call to me and I will come." And the Lord says, "Come," right? And I love how Jesus, He encouraged Peter's risk-taking. And that's what this lesson is about today, about taking risks and seasons of transition. Peter got that confirmation, and as soon as he got it, as soon as the Lord said, "Come, it's time," right? We talked about that 3 a.m. hour in a previous video, where it seems sometimes it seems like it's not the best hour, but the Lord says, "Come," right? It's unexpected. He says, "Come." And Peter stepped out. He took a risk to follow the voice of the Lord. Now, I couldn't know for certain what Peter's motive was, right? Was it, "I want to do what you're doing. If you're walking on water, I want to do the impossible too"? Or did Peter just want to be where he was? Or I don't know how it must have felt to be in the position of the disciples at that moment. But there was just some curiosity within Peter that I just so admire. A curiosity to know the Lord in all of His facets, in all of His dimensions, all of the ways He speaks, but also to come to the Lord, to obey Him, to follow His footsteps. And that's what true discipleship is. It's imitating your teacher, right? It's doing the things that your teacher does. And so Peter says, "You know what, I'm going to do it too." And he does. He steps out onto the water, and he's walking on water. But then something happens. He looked at that wind. He looked at that change. He looked at that circumstance instead of keeping his eyes on Jesus. So we can give Peter here, if we're to dissect the life of Peter, we should be looking at our own, right? But we can look at Peter's life and say, "Peter, great job for confirming the voice of the Lord. Peter, great job for taking the risk." But then we'll learn in the next video what Peter needs to work on in his life with the Lord. And so I just want to encourage you is that as you are transitioning, once you get that confirmation that the Lord wants to do something new in your life, the moment he says, come, I encourage you to step out of the boat. I pray that you will do it with such boldness and that your focus will not be on the waves, that your focus will not be on the wind, that it will not be on these external circumstances, but that you'll rise above that and at all times, and that you will keep your eyes fixed on the author and the finisher of your faith, the one who called you out and the one that will save you if and when you fall, because we all have those moments where we fall, but the Lord is gracious and he extends his hand. There's something Bill Johnson says, and he says we should be crying out in private, right? Crying out for more of the Lord, crying out for his presence, crying out that he'll anoint us for the task. But in public, we should be taking risks, right? So whatever the Lord is calling you to, in this case, Jesus called Peter to come out of the boat and walk on water. But the Lord is calling us all to do something, right? He's calling us to represent him. He's calling us to certain areas of influence, that we will shine, that we will be salt on this earth. And if we don't take the risks, we cannot say that we're fully obeying the Lord. And to be a disciple is to obey his voice. And so I pray that he will fill you with great courage, great boldness as you take risks in public because of the confirmation you received in private due to your cry out. And so I bless you on your journey as you transition, whenever the Lord calls you to change, whether it's now or it's in the future. But one thing we know is that it will happen, right? This is what we all live in this life. So I bless you, and I'll see you in the next video, the last one, where we're going to talk about something very interesting.